I am a firm believer of bringing your true, real, authentic person into the workplace. Um, I really push against watering yourself down to make yourself palatable to other people. And at the end of the day, people are going to love you, like you, being different about you regardless. So why not just be true to yourself?
Hi, guys. Welcome back to Patent Pending, the podcast. We're here with Danielle Avant today. She will be joining us to tell you a little bit about her journey through her career and how she's approached that with a very creative lens. Danielle, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so happy to have you here. Can you start out telling us a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to most recently?
Yes. Well, first, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you ladies today. So my journey is quite interesting. I started my career probably about a year out of college. So I essentially started in the government contracting, personnel, industrial security realm. Boring stuff. I mean, all it is I used to be a background investigator where I would actually go out and get all in people's business and, investigate their backgrounds for those obtaining government clearances. So that was kind of like the baseline of my career. As I moved on, still in the same industry, but moved more into leadership roles and things like that. And it's interesting because like growing up, I always, saw myself as like a creative. I wanted to be like a fashion designer or a nail tech. And so it was just interesting at how I kind of like got plopped into that corporate realm. So again, as I developed throughout my career, I just kind of said, you know what? There is a way I can merge the two. Like I can still be creative and, bring that into the corporate realm. It doesn't have to be stuffy and, within a box. And throughout my career too, I also noticed that there was a gap in leadership development. Within our careers and jobs we've had, I'm sure we've worked under, bosses and then leaders. My perspective, two totally different realms. A boss is kind of like, this is what we're going to do, and you're going to do it my way. And sometimes they don't just really have those soft skills or those skills necessary to really effectively lead and develop people on their team. So I saw a big gap in that. And then I will say, like within the last year, it just kind of started coming to me. And I was like, listen, we need resources and things like this for leadership development. So I decided to get into leadership development coaching. And that had really just been amazing. I had always been told in my roles that I had like a natural knack for relating to people, being able to identify, their best qualities and really just encourage and help them drive them to their goals. So I always had a heart for women. As my thing. I love to serve women. So I said, I really want to focus on helping millennial age women, even more specific, develop their leadership skills because we're next in the C-suite. Like we think about it, we're up next. So why not, what's that saying? If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right? So that's how I came about with coaching. I call myself the creative corporate girl. And again, it's just debunking the myth that creatives can thrive in a corporate realm. So just a bit about me.
That's awesome. No, I think that that's so needed in the world right now. And it's just so nice and so like enlightening to hear somebody say that who's built their life in the corporate realm and still is able to hold that mindset. So can you tell us a little bit more about like the timeline of your background and when exactly these thoughts started dropping in of like, oh, I can be creative? Do you think there was anything along the way any particular experiences that led you to thinking these things or wanting to find a new way and recognize a new path?
That's an amazing question. I'd have to say it probably was about maybe halfway through my career, where I was just like, I just felt like you were always put in a box or a bubble. And I don't like being put in a box. If you put me in a box, I'm going to decorate the box. I'm going to, do everything different I can with the box. I just always have had like that thinking, that mentality. And so I think it was about probably halfway through my career where I just noticed it was always like a places would have cultures. This is how we've always done it. There was just no flexibility around how to get from point A to point B. It was like, no, you have to do it this way. Well, I could go this way too and still get the same result, still sticking to compliance per se. It was a lot of rigidity. And so I just said, you know what? I don't want to be in this box. I want to be able to bring something fresh, fresh value and ideas to the table. So I kind of like became a rebel with the cause, where I would push back, in meetings and against leadership and say, hey, I know this is how y'all have done it the last 20 years. You've been running this ship, but have you ever thought about it, this perspective? What about if we do it this way? Let's give it a try. If it doesn't work, great. But if it works, we have found a more efficient manner. I like to work smart, not hard. That used to be one of my pitches in interviews and things. I would tell the interview panel, hey, if you're looking for a hard worker, I'm not your candidate. Don't hire me. I like to work smart. And they'll always be like, oh, like that's interesting. So I just feel like through halfway of my career, because of course you come in, you're fresh, you're green, you want to learn, and you don't want to seem like, oh, you're just the baby with the milk on your breath. You don't know anything about anything yet. But I just noticed throughout, like, yeah, we can do this different and we can still get the same result and still provide the same service.
That's awesome. I think it's so great that you were able to kind of bridge the gap between your corporate career as well as honoring your creative side. Can you talk a little bit about the specific things that you were able to incorporate into your job and your workflow to really continue to honor those creative aspects of your personality and work in your ability to delegate and the remainder of responsibilities that didn't really work with your creative side?
Absolutely. So one of my things is I love authenticity. I am a firm believer of bringing your true, real, authentic person into the workplace. I really push against watering yourself down to make yourself palatable to other people. And at the end of the day, people are going to love you, like you, being different about you regardless. So why not just be true to yourself? And one of those main things to me, especially looking at it from a creative standpoint, was building your brand. Like, although you're working for someone else is, cutting your paychecks. I believe that especially, the millennial age group, that right now it's such a entrepreneurial spirit. It's kind of like, oh, if you're not an entrepreneur, you're not doing it right. And I totally disagree with that. I believe that you can have an entrepreneurial spirit and still bring that into the workplace. And what's one of the things people first tell you when you create a business? Oh, get your brand together, get your, brand colors and your story and, your tagline. But really a brand, whether it's for a business or personal for yourself, is what is your story? How do you make people feel? Like, when people interact with you, what feelings are evoked? And so that was kind of like me creating my brand and bringing my creative side into it. Like I mentioned earlier, I used to want to be a fashion designer. So I bring my sense of style into the workplace. I know how to be professional, but also, just have my own creative style. I love to put outfits and clothes together. I am also a woman of many hairstyles. So I change my hair up pretty often, and it's always been very well received. Like, it's, people are like, oh, you're always, look so put together. I just wish I could kind of like put things together, getting dressed and things like that. So that was part of me building my personal brand, just what people see, because, being real as a woman, and I'm a woman of color, a lot of times, you kind of get judged off the bat. Like, you walk center interview, they're like, oh. So I've always have been taught, like, we kind of have to work harder, twice as hard as some of our other counterparts and things like that. But I'm just like, I really wanted to, when you see me, I don't want you to just see me as a woman or a woman of color. I want you to see Danielle. Like, this is me. This is what I'm bringing. This is me in the interview. This is me after you hire me every day. I don't want to have this persona where you hire someone in the interview and then they come in and they're like, that's not the same person I met. So I would say one thing was bringing my personal sense of style. My personality, I just really have always really enjoyed connecting with people, engaging with people, all types of personality and strengths finders assessments I take, relator, and people person's kind of like always at the top of the list. So I think that bringing that as a creative, like, again, you're evoking emotions and making connections with people that they want to do business with you, or they want to get to know you, they want to learn from you. So I kind of brought that into as well. And then kind of to Katie's point about like delegating and things like that. Yes, I am creative and things like that, and I am the big picture idea, but I know my weaknesses. I know what I can't do or what I'm not great at doing. So I have no issues really getting to know the people I work with and learning what their strengths are, and really utilizing their strengths. Like, as a team, we complement one another. I may lead a team where I oversee operations, but I treat all of their colleagues. I don't say that I am the boss of anyone or I manage anyone. We are a team. They have their strengths and I have mine, and we can cross train one another or try to show. And if it's just like, listen, I can't get this, I can't figure this out, then I absolutely trust them to, handle those things that I may not be the best at.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that it's so important to be able to really understand your strengths and honor them. And I love what you said at the beginning of this conversation of like bringing your whole self and not watering yourself down, and just showing up as your authentic self. Because I think there's a place out there for everybody in your full capacity. It's just a matter of being courageous enough to go and find that, instead of like fitting into a box, like you said, and just saying, okay, this is good enough. I'll stay here for now and live in this box and do what I do and see where it takes me next. Because there is opportunity to thrive elsewhere. It's just a matter of, do you want to seek it or do you not? So, I mean, I think what I would love to talk about is a little bit about how you help other people from a leadership perspective pull that out of themselves. Do you have any tips for leaders or anybody who is looking to move into a leadership position as to what different things you could implement to help others be able to pull those aspects out of their personality and their work ethic and their patterns in a job?
Absolutely. So I'll share one tool that I love to use with my coaching clients. It's called the SMART life assessment, like the life will assessment. It's amazing because, when you think about leadership, people always just kind of think of like executive and, things like that, and just on the job. What the life will assessment does is it assesses all parts of your life. Because let's be honest, if some things of your life and your personal life aren't, where you would like it to be, it's going to spill over into your work, and vice versa. So I really love to use that tool kind of as a base, a starting point where we're like, okay, let's look at this. Let's look at, your environment. Let's look at finances. Let's look at, time you're spending with your loved ones and friends and well-being and taking care of yourself. And then let's look at your work. Because if there's an imbalance on that wheel, it's going to show up. It's going to show up in how you show up. And then in regards to my advice always, and I got this advice from awesome leaders, that help groom me, get a mentor. Like, either if you don't want to do like a coach, get a mentor. Get someone that you absolutely admire. Don't be afraid to reach out to them. People you would be surprised. People love it. They're like, oh, like, I'm so honored, you thought to reach out to me. Get a mentor. And you can have more than one. Get a couple if you can. And really, listen to their stories. Listen, ask them for resources. Ask them about their journey, what type of advice they can give to you, and then implement it. Execution and implementation are key, because we can get all this wonderful advice and have all these great conversations and get all the self-help books and how to do this and that, but if you don't execute or implement it, it's a moot point. Like, you stay stagnant. So I really love to encourage people that I have worked with and developing in leadership is get a mentor, someone that you really admire, you really want to learn their story. And then also think about your why. Like, what drives you? What makes you wake up and excited to, do your work and the work that you do? And what about your company, excites you? Like, is the culture a good fit for you? So those are things I also have them think about. Reframing your thoughts is a major one too. So it's funny because my friends always laugh at me. My favorite days of the week are Sunday and Monday. I love Monday. I call it moving and shaking Monday. Like, I wake up on Monday and I'm like, hey, we're moving and shaking. Let's get it. Let's get to work. Let's get on this to-do list. I love it. And it's funny because you'll like go through social media and people are like, oh, it's like, I hate Mondays. This is the Mondiest Monday ever. And I'm like, I love Mondays. And it's all about your thought, how you reframe your thought. You wake up every day and you can either say, I have to go to work today. Or you can wake up and say, you know what? I'm grateful I get to go to work. I'm grateful I get to work with an amazing team and I have leadership that really cares about me. And I get to do the job that I really love. So I also, like I said, reframing thoughts. Those are some of my key things I really love to employ to others. Absolutely. Also remaining a student. Like, I don't care how old you are in age, how seasoned you are in your age, always remain a student, always remain coachable, always go looking for, education, or, if there's a class that you're interested in that could help elevate your skills and knowledge, do it. Don't worry about people saying, oh, you're going back to school or you're taking this class. Like, do it for you. It is for you. It is your why. And it's going to keep you sharp. It's going to keep you, constantly in the know of what's going on in your industry, or, like I said, developing your skills. And it is a game changer too, because when other people see you, especially if you're, trying to really work your way up, they're going to see you're taking initiative. You're owning your career. That's what I like to call that. You're owning your career. No one's really going to come to you and just hand this to you. They're not going to say, oh, here, you come to work every day here. No, they have to show that you want it, so bad that you are going to go do whatever you need to do to develop yourself into a better, whatever it is you're striving for. So those are some of my key things that I really like to employ to others. So.
Absolutely. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I feel like we've spoken about that a bit before, Katie and I, on this show. And it's just so important to be reminded of. And I think you hit on a key point. Another thing we like to share with our listeners a lot is that mentorship is so key. If you're able to see it and you see somebody else doing it and you're like, oh, that's really admirable. Like, how did you get there? What were your mistakes? How do I embody what you're doing? Like, I look up to you and I admire you for these reasons. Like, don't blindly follow. Just don't put yourself in a position where you're like, okay, I'm just going to take this path and like, this is where I'm going to end up. Maybe like that person who, are they even happy? Are they even fulfilled? Are they enjoying their career? Like really know who you're admiring and why you're admiring them, and what seeking advice from them and, you know, following in their footsteps could do for your life. I think that that's something that lacks throughout many organizations, is being able to have leaders that you can really like connect with and look up to and like lean on in uncertain times throughout your career. I know that, you know, to an extent that's been my personal experience, but I've also seen the other side of that coin as well, where it really does benefit you when you have that person to look up to and show you, hey, there's a way. Like, I know it's hard today, but you know, tomorrow we can get past this. It's very, very important. And I think remaining a student is also crucial. Like if you're not willing to learn, then what are you doing, you know? Right?
Exactly. It's like, oh, what are you doing? Like you have to remain open to learning new things. I totally agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. I'm curious, just from some of the things that you were saying, what's your perspective on, so I know sometimes in the corporate world, you can end up in an environment where maybe the people around you aren't super positive, you know, aren't embodying that kind of environment that you want to be in or that you want to cultivate. So what would be your advice for someone in a situation like that who's starting to notice, you know, some negativity around their workplace and how to deal with that and how to move past it?
That's an amazing question. Okay, so one of my things, never stay loyal to a particular place or company just because. I am very, very intentional about, I'll say now a little bit, you know, more in my career, more so starting out, just like, hey, if you want to hire me, great. Like, you know, I'll take it. Being really, really intentional about really researching, you know, the companies and the positions that you're going in for. And again, does their culture, you know, does what they stand for, their values, their mission, is it in line with your personal mission, with your personal mission statement? And I know sometimes it's not always where, hey, I can just get up and go find a new job. I get that. And so if you're in the other flip side of the coin where you're not like, hey, I'm just going to leave, you know, go here or there. And it's funny because actually I've been at my current corporate position at my job for the last 4 years. That's the longest I've been anywhere. So I've always been like, you know what, this is not the place for me. If I'm waking up and as I'm driving into work and I'm getting closer to the work, I'm starting to develop a headache or just a negative vibe because it's a toxic environment, it's time for me to go when I start feeling like that. Now, on the other side too, as I've matured to, you know, in my career in personal development, energy is extremely contagious. So if you allow the negativity, you know, the toxic vibes and environment to get to you, you're going to start internalizing it. You're going to start being the negative Nancy's and Nicks with the rest of them. But if you set boundaries and say, hey, you know, I don't want to be involved in the office drama, the gossip, you know, whatever. I don't want to be a part of that. And then on the other side, you can be the light in the office, because I also believe that you are put in a certain place at a certain time because there's something there for you that is needed. And there's people there that need you. So if you're going to come into a situation, and sometimes you may have kind of like the heads up where it's like, hey, we're bringing you to this team. You know, it hasn't been a really great environment. We're hoping that you can bring something to kind of turn that around. Be the light, be the positive energy, be the difference, you know, to try to kind of help turn that around. So I would say, honestly, definitely just setting those boundaries from jump of like, hey, you know, this isn't what I'm about. Don't want to get involved in this, but also set the example, set the tone for the positivity. Really, and again, and sometimes it happens where it's happening at the leadership level too. Call it out. Like, call it out. Say, hey, this isn't creating a great culture and a great environment for your employees. You know, if you want to know why there's high turnover or, you know, employees are not engaged, do a survey, talk to them, find out what is going on, and then take the steps necessary, listen to them, and then take the steps necessary to ask, well, what can we do to change this? You know, what can we do? And then really try to like shift that if you can. So those are just my takes. Like, never feel like if it becomes draining to you, where it's a, you know, mental, it's starting dealing with your physical, because, you know, when you're starting to not feel like yourself in your body, you know, in your mind, it starts to come through your body. You know, if you're always getting sick, you're having headaches, you're just not, you're like, this place is bad for me. It's like killing me slowly. I gotta go. If you can do that, absolutely. Never stay committed to a place or a company. Stay committed to your values, you know, and your mission, and tie yourselves to places that also support and complement that.
Yeah, definitely. I agree 100%. And I think one of the things that people a lot of times try to do is, when they're feeling that way and they're having those negative vibes coming from their workplace and things like that, I feel like everyone's always looking for a reason. So it's like, well, they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't do anything to me. Like, no, maybe it's just not your environment, and it's not the place that you're supposed to be. It's not necessarily that they did anything wrong, or that they're a horrible company or a horrible employer or anything like that. It's like a relationship. Sometimes it's just not right. Sometimes it just doesn't work. And it's not that anyone did anything wrong. It's just that place at that time in your life is not right. And your body's giving you those cues, like you said. If it's not good mentally, like, you're going to, after a while, you're going to start feeling it physically, because those things are all connected.
Absolutely. I love that. It's just like a relationship. You kind of have like these are my non-negotiables with this. And like you said, it may not be, like you said, that they've done anything to you personally, but if you even witness it being done to like other people and colleagues, that's problematic as well, you know. And it's like, do you stand up and call it out? Some people, I've learned about this in some of my and education courses I'm taking, but some people are what they call in survival mode with work. So they're just like, I really need this job. Like, I don't really care what's going on. They haven't done anything to me. I'm just going to sit back and just deal with it in a way. And so I love, Katie, how you said, like, no, like, this just may not be the place for you at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to be able to like recognize that and be okay with the thought, like, oh, no one has to do anything wrong. Like, it is okay for me to recognize this, because it's not the norm. Like, that's not what we're taught to seek out and look for and be aware of. And I feel like millennials are getting really good at going against the grain with stuff like this, where it's like, okay, yeah, it's not the norm, and it should probably be the norm to go and do this thing, whatever it may be, you know. Can you tell us a little bit about what some of your best tips would be for somebody who is in a very rigid career path, or a rigid company that maybe has some antiquated viewpoints of how the organization should run, but they can't really move out of that position at that point in time, or maybe they don't necessarily want to. What would be your tips for them to work in creative thoughts and creative practices and things like that to their work?
I think I would start off by saying, yeah, definitely the rigidity in the box and all that good stuff. If they can employ some of those creative ideas, just, you know, singularly first, like if they say, okay, I'm going to try this, you know, I'm going to try this as a test case, as a beta. And then if they're able to get maybe even one colleague or so buy in on it. Like maybe prior to a meeting or something, they can say, hey, like, I know we were, having to do this way. I've really been, working it this way and have been seeing great results. If I bring this up, in our next meeting, can you support me with that? So I think it's just like don't start with what you have and what you can do for your yourself, and then kind of slowly shopping that and getting buy-in around from colleagues, and then work your way up to getting it to leadership to kind of try to see a different perspective. I know in places I'm at, like, you can't just say, oh, I am super busy. My division is extremely busy. We need more people. We need more resources, more personnel. They're going to want to see numbers. They're going to want to see, well, how busy are you? Like, show me. So if you're able to kind of start doing things in a non-conventional way from that company or division's culture, and you can actually have something tangible to say, hey, look, I did it this way, and look at the results we got. Like, I say, can we try it? And I would just say consistently do that. Honestly, consistently try to push that envelope some way. Yeah, again, some people may not feel comfortable with doing that, but how comfortable would you be just sitting somewhere and, what's happening is just antiquated? It's just like, this makes no sense. We could really be, increasing our productivity and bringing value into the company if we tried it this way. So I would just say, just be courageous, be that rebel with the cause, be that trailblazer. And it's not going to be easy at first, of course, because again, things are set in their ways and it seems like it's set in stone. But if you consistently show that it makes a difference and you just keep your foot on the gas with it, you're going to get somebody's attention. Somebody's going to say, okay, wait, you know what? Well, maybe let's listen to them. This might make sense. Let's give it a shot. I mean, it's the worst that can happen. Like, let's try something different. So I just say be consistently start, doing it for yourself. If you can't drive it all the way up to the chain automatically and get buy-in and then just kind of get buy-in from others around there. And then if you have that mentor, in that space, get buy-in from them, run the ideas past them and see if they have resources or connections or knowledge or ways that maybe they've done it, in their career, in their, their experience. And they can say, okay, well, this is how I was able to get us to change a process or, increase, improve what we're doing. Try it this way as well. So again, utilizing that mentor, starting with what you have and with yourself, and then slowly getting the buy-in if you can, and then having those proven results to drive up the chain.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the biggest things is having backup. I think even when you look at like resume development, right? So you don't want to put on your resume, I led a team on an engagement. Okay, well, how many people did you lead and how many engagements was this and what was the complexities around it and how did you want to be very specific as to what the results were and what you actually did, on a very detailed level. So I think that it means a lot when you're talking about a corporate company, a lot of times the higher executives, their days are crazy busy. They're usually on phone calls and meetings all day long. Their days are blocked out every second of every day. So I think for them, making it super easy for them to understand what you did and what the results were, even on a, like you said, a singular level, means a lot more to them than just saying, hey, I had an idea, maybe we can do it this way. It's like, well, why? You're making them do the work. You're making them go, all right, we have to look into it. We have to figure it out. And we'll see how. They don't want to do that. So if you can, I think people will see a lot more success by trying it themselves, like you said, and then documenting, I mean, even formal proposals, like people, I feel like everyone wants to bring up the idea, but you got to put in the work to like put together a proposal, even if it's like the smallest little change. Put something together that is very clear and concise, and they can take 2 seconds and look at it and say, yes, that's going to save us $10,000. Let's do it. I wanted to talk a little bit about avoiding burnout in the corporate world, because that can be a really big problem for a lot of people. And I think the mentality can be the grind, and everyone wants to work. And especially when you're young, because we get into the mentality of like, I'm going to work really, really hard right now, and then 10 years from now I won't have to put in all of these hours and be a workaholic. But I think it's important to remember from the start that you need to maintain your balance. So what are some of your tips for people to maintain that work-life balance and avoid burnout along the way?
Oh, yes, I love this topic. So, and you made a great point where, our generation, it's always about the hustle and the grind and, no days off. No, you need days off. You need days off. My biggest thing, setting boundaries. And what I mean by that, some things I love to do, I love to place blocks on my calendar. So from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., I block that hour out. That is the time I'm usually getting my daughter online for school, for virtual learning, getting her together. And then usually she's on by 8:15. So for that 45 minutes until 9 a.m., I've logged on to work, but I am checking emails, responding to emails, really getting a flow for my day. So that way no one can just throw a meeting on my calendar. I also block out time for lunch, because we can sit here, especially with the COVID environment and, teleworking and working virtually. And we could just be sitting right at our workstation, plugging away, and then realize the day has gone by. You haven't stopped to eat. You haven't taken a break to just go take a quick walk or get up. So I like to break out an hour for lunch, and I really try to be cognizant of actually getting up from my desk, going somewhere else, eating my lunch. It's also too communication. Communicate with members on your team. Communicate with your leadership about, hey, I have family and things to take care of, outside of work. So I'm going to be out of the pocket, from this time to this time. And just really, because the thing is, everyone's situation is extremely unique. And as long as you can people just kind of know what's going on. You don't have to give them the whole nitty gritty of your personal life. But it is so people, I know you mentioned like work-life balance. I kind of like to call it a work-life integration in a way, because when I think of balance, I think of the scales. Like, I just feel like it never really gets to be even. So it has to be a way where you can weave and integrate the two. And by doing that is just communicating with people that, hey, you know what, Fridays, I'm logging off at 3:00. Like, Friday is family Friday night. Like, this is what we do. I'm logging off at 3, so don't expect to see me online. I'm not attending any meetings. This is Friday family night. We're going to watch a movie. That's our thing. So definitely setting the boundaries, and then communicating those boundaries with everyone else. And then also on the flip of that, being respectful of everyone else's boundaries as well. So especially in corporate, a lot of, Katie, like you mentioned, a lot of the higher execs, they're constantly, working, they're booked up. And a lot of times they want to have meetings at like 6:30, 7:00 at night. Typically that's the time most of us are like, no, we're done for the day. We have families and other things outside that we have to take care of. So it's also about, I like to treat people the way I want to be treated. So I don't want to put a meeting or a touch point on your calendar at 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. because I don't want anybody doing that to me. So I would say definitely setting boundaries, communicating, letting people know, hey, this is what I have going on. And this is, I I need to be able to own my day. And again, and I know like some companies may be a little bit more rigid to that, where you may have a set tour of duty time you have to log in. But really do try to have those conversations with your leadership to ask for flexibility if needed, right? So essentially you want to work with people that respect your well-being as well. So definitely with that. And then burnout, I mean, goodness, like really paying attention to your mental wellness, your body. I know when I'm starting to get stressed or overloaded, develop headaches, and I'm one where I don't really get a lot of headaches. So if I'm getting a headache, I know I'm like overloading myself. And just really being in tune to that, knowing when to take a break. I know in corporate, like with my company, we call it PTO, paid time off. We also reference it real time off. So we're like, are you taking RTO? Are you taking real time off? And by that, I mean, you're not logging in to check emails. You're not texting your colleagues like, hey, what's going on? Do you need me? You have completely unplugged, disconnected. If the ship sinks and the place burns down, you won't know until you come back from PTO. Like, it's just, you have to really set that boundary. You have to. So I always employ my colleagues on my team. I'm like, hey, even if you don't have, I mean, as of right now, nobody's really traveling and doing things, taking vacations, because of COVID. But please, I encourage them to take at least one mental health day a month. If they want to take more, absolutely. But I will check in with them if I notice some of them haven't had time off. And I'm like, hey, you're taking off like Monday or something, right? And then that's when they're like, yeah, I am. So really just, you have to really set that boundary for yourself. And yes, it's absolutely amazing if you have leadership and other people on your team that will hold you accountable to take that real time off. And then again, also the thing too is when you're on PTO, like I said, we want to respect and treat people the way we want to be treated. So I'm not reaching out to my colleagues if I know they're out. I'm not texting them like, hey, I know you're, on vacation, or I know you're taking today off, but I really need, no, it's okay. Like, whatever, if it can't be handled while they're out, it can wait until they return. But it definitely just be respectful of each other and of yourself. Be good to yourself and to the people that you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any advice for people who are trying to like get a clear cut way of seeking that out in their leadership? Say if they're going through an interview process or just looking at companies, what would your advice be to people who are at that stage in their career right now, or maybe switching companies to find that in their leadership? Because I'm very happy to see that it's like more regular now, but it's not the case in many organizations that you do have leaders who are like, hey, yeah, you need a day off. Bye. So what would your advice be to find that?
So with the interview process, we always go into it like, oh, I'm picking, I want to do my best to present my best self because I want them to choose me. But you're actually interviewing this company as well. Like, you're interviewing the people you'll be working with as well. It's a two-way street, because I've been on interviews before where, it sounded great from the requisition that I applied to, but then when I got in there and I asked a few questions, I didn't really like the responses, or there kind of wasn't a response. So for me, that was my indicator, well, maybe this really isn't like the right role for me. And that's okay. So definitely, in interviews, we're getting asked questions, but there should always be toward the end of the interview where whoever's interviewing say, hey, do you have any questions for me? Or do you have any questions about the company? And you should absolutely have questions at every single interview for, the role you're going in for in the company. So my advice would be to ask that, to just ask, hey, what are your companies or what are your divisions policies around, flexibility, and well-being and, things like that, and see what the leadership or, whoever you're interviewing with has to say about that. If they say, oh, well, we don't really have any, that should kind of be like a red flag that kind of pops up like, like you definitely ask. Don't be afraid to ask. You were allowed to ask questions in an interview, and you were allowed to say, you know what, those responses, this isn't a good fit for me. And even if, again, like some places may not really be as flexible, but you can also kind of ask, well, if there's special circumstances, are you willing to, work with someone that needs those special circumstances and things like that? So definitely ask, I would say. And then, depending on your response, you kind of, can, flesh it out from there.
Yeah, I definitely think that's important. I had an interview recently because I was recently in the job search. And one of the interviews I was on, I asked, it was a fully remote position. And one of the things I asked was, how are you maintaining like company culture and interaction between the team while everyone's working from home? And they kind of just stumbled through an answer, non-answer. And I was like, I mean, there's a lot of things you could do. Like, we have monthly team meetings on Zoom and just, chat about non-work related things, or like, there's so many things that you could do. Or we send a wellness reminder email every week for something to, take 10 minutes to yourself during the day, whatever it is. I'm like, you could have come up with something. And so that was a red flag for me that wasn't the place that I needed to be. And sometimes it can be a one-sided interview. So just as much as you might go into an interview and they might not choose you, even though you really wanted to work for them, there's going to be times too where if you're employing these questions and you're asking all of these things and doing everything throughout the interview, using all of these tips, there's going to be times where they are making you an offer and you're like, nope, this isn't really right for me. It could be a great offer, but that down the line, it's not going to be good for you. It's not going to be good for your mental and physical well-being. And it's just not right. And going back to the same thing as before, sometimes it's just not right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love, Katie, how you brought up the point about the question about how are you doing to keep, your team connected throughout this time. And yes, like, are you guys having like virtual little coffee chats and, like you said, virtual check-ins? And are you setting up like well-being things like chair yoga and, things like that? And are you also just like doing informal check-ins, just putting like 15 minutes on, people's calendars and just say, hey, I just wanted to check in with you. Like, how are you doing? How's it going? And really genuinely caring, So I love how you said that. I think that's amazing. And that was great that you asked them that and that they said, and so you were like, yeah, that's a red flag.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's important to be brave in interviews. I feel like a lot of people get very overwhelmed. And they're like, should I ask that question? Should I say that thing? Should I, put this thought out there? Ask all the questions. Like, you're not in the job yet. No, like, you don't need to overwhelm yourself. You don't like work for anybody yet if you're interviewing, obviously. So what's the worst thing that could happen? You don't move forward in the interview process? Okay, great. That happened for a reason. If you asked a question and it turned them off that much, then, it wasn't meant to be. That's how I look at that. But, yeah, I think it's really important to stay tuned in with yourself too, to really recognize your needs and how they change throughout your career. And as you grow and develop more skills and move closer to leadership positions, if that's, the path that you're taking and things of that nature, so that you can stay aligned with what you actually want. Because if you're not asking yourself these questions on a regular basis and you're not, resetting and reconvening with your thoughts like, Melissa, what do I want? to do today? Like, what do I want to be going into every day when it comes to the space of an office? Do I even want to do that? Do I want to work for somebody? Do I want to work within a team? Like, asking critical questions about what you want your life to look like and how your job plays into that is so important, because it's not sustainable if you're not happy. And I think it's really inspiring to see you have so much success, Danielle, even though you have moved around a bit in your career. And I think that that's not really like something that is commonly heard again in our society. You find a place, you stay there forever, you stick around, you stay loyal. Like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. You can create your own path and seek it out elsewhere. You're not tied to a company for the rest of your life when you make a decision. So yeah, I really just want everybody to hear that and let that resonate and really understand that the choice is yours. If you can't make the choice for yourself, then you're giving up your freedom at the end of the day, and that's like not what we want to happen here.
I think it also goes back to what Danielle was saying before about never like choosing that loyalty to the company over your needs, because one of the things I was thinking about is we're saying it's so important to know all of these things that you need to have and have, like, your checklist of things that you're looking for in an employer. But you're not going to know all those things in the beginning, so you have to give yourself a little bit of leeway to figure it out and know that along the way, yeah, you might work at a job for 6 months to a year and then say, you know what, this is like a hard no, I can't deal with this one aspect of this job. So move on, and you're going to gain those little things along the way. And it's going to become clearer the more times that you discover new things and the more situations you put yourself in. So, it's okay not to know in the beginning, but you have to go into it with the mindset of, well, when I discover it and when I figure it out, I need to address it. And if I address it, and by addressing it, I find out that that's not happening here and this isn't the way that I want it to be, then you have to be open to the idea of going somewhere else, because you will find somewhere that aligns with your beliefs. And if that's even working for someone, you might decide somewhere along the road that you don't want to work for a company, you want to start your own business, or you want to do something totally different. Who knows? There's so many possibilities out there, but just be aware of when those things come up and how you can discover them and then address them.
I love that. Both you ladies, like what you said is amazing. Your passions and goals throughout your career can change. It's going to change. Like, think about how much you've changed, just with yourself, your personal development. So it's nothing wrong, like you said, with just kind of refining and kind of keep checking in, like, hey, is this, I know I wanted to do this 5 years ago, but now I'm that's shifting, and that's okay. Like, don't feel guilty. And great point of the culture, especially generations before us, it was always get a great job and stay there. Like, my mother's been at her job for 41 years. That's the only job she's had straight out of high school. And I'm just like, I would be dying inside. And it's so it's just amazing to, hear that, you're not alone, when you're like, it's okay to change my mind, change my goals, change the vision I have for my career, and whether that is, in the corporate or working for someone else or entrepreneurship, it's okay. And you can reinvent and recreate yourself as many times as you want.
Yes, absolutely. I think it would be super beneficial for us to also speak a little bit on the integration of entrepreneurship into your life. So Danielle, I know you touched on it a little bit in our conversations back and forth, but I don't think we've really highlighted too much of that here, about the fact that you are a corporate professional, but you do other stuff too, and you're a mother, and you're doing all of that stuff, and it's all great. So, like, tell us, how in the world are you integrating these things and like tending to all your values and your responsibilities in a way that makes you feel good on a day-to-day basis? So many people struggle with that. And I feel like it's a serious like epidemic in the professional workforce, that people feel limited to, oh, I can't start that business that I've always dreamed of because I really need to hold on to my job, or I can't start that business because I need to take that time when I leave work to be home with my kids and cook dinner for my family and make my home a beautiful, loving home. Like, how are you doing all of those things? And what would be some of the hardest things that you worked through along the way in trying to find that jive and, your groove with all of this?
Yes, that's amazing. Well, I'm doing it by prayers and by the grace of God. It keeps me together. But I feel like and just speaking with people that I know, I think people overthink it. They overanalyze, they let the analysis paralysis keep them stuck. And when you think about it, if you do have like a passion, for entrepreneurship, and you love your 9 to 5, you can have both. Why do you have to choose? I don't want to choose. I want to be able to have it all. I am a big proponent of, number one, having, of course, more than one stream of income. Let's be real. We love our jobs and companies, that we, serve for, and they've helped develop us. But let's be real. Tomorrow you can wake up and they can say, hey, thanks for your service. You're no longer needed. So I always feel like you should always have something else, in the, over there, just in case. You just never know. And then if it's something you love to do, then why aren't you doing it? Especially if you don't get to do it at your 9 to 5, like if you're a wedding planner and you just love it, but you don't have a 9 to 5 wedding planning job, you can do that on the side and do something that brings you joy. And then be realistic too about how you can manage and integrate it as well. Also, and this kind of goes back into like the work-life integration we talked about, setting those boundaries. So if you're like, okay, I am going to work my 9 to 5 from 8 to 4, those are like my hours. Literally shut it down when you say you're going to shut it down. Like, log off, I'm done, because now from 5 to 6, I'm getting dinner ready, and things like that. This time after that, I'm spending time with my family. And then, 8 o'clock, once I got kids in bed and things like that, now I'm going to work a little bit on what, it is that Danielle likes to do. So I definitely just really say those boundaries, really being realistic about what you can do so that you're not overloading yourself, but also just having that passion and that drive to like keep it going. If it's something you enjoy doing, then you'll keep it going. And then simplify it. A lot of us have skills, knowledge that we have acquired, from our 9 to 5s that we could, translate into an entrepreneurial pursuit. So that's why I said I think sometimes we kind of overcomplicate it. We, make it more difficult than what it has to be. But just think about all of the things that you do, in your day-to-day at your job that you could do, outside of that. Of course, if you have an NDA or something like that where you can't, non-compete clause with your job. Yeah, but we are all equipped with all types of skills to really bring that into something else. So that supported the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's crucial for us to all get really creative, especially during these times, with what our capabilities are based off of the skill sets that we have and how do we monetize those skills. I was just speaking to 2 different groups of people about this morning, actually, that if you have skills that are, say, for example, trade based, and you're creating something or fixing something, and that's a service that's consistently needed, and you enjoy learning that skill, then learn how to capitalize off of that. If you have something that's more service based and you can get creative with 5 different ways that you can provide one service, now that everything is being shifted to online and you can create maybe different templates or different workbooks or PDFs to provide something or whatever it may be, like tune into that skill and get creative about how you can make money off of it. And you will. You just have to take the action steps to do so. And if you don't know how, then seek out that information because it's out there. It's like information overload on everything right now in the world. And especially when you're in this personal development space and you're like, I want to seek that information. I want to find the stuff, like specify the things that you're looking to find and you will find it. If you can't be specific about what you need out in the world, you're just going to get an influx of information and it's going to go wish wash right over your brain and not much of it will be retained probably. So really like refine what it is that you're seeking to learn and then find a way to get that information in the most fruitful way possible for the way that you learn and the things that you're looking to do with your knowledge. It's so important. So important. And I love that people are getting more in tune with personal development and more interested in just getting creative and thinking outside of the box.
Yes, I love it. I love it. That gives me chills.
I think one of the major themes of what we're getting at here is really owning your own endeavors. So if no matter what you're doing in your life, whether it's a corporate career or your own business or you're a stay-at-home mom or whatever it is that you do in your life, you own that. Like you are an entrepreneur of that. That is what you do. And it could be 10 different things and it could be one thing. But really take control of that and always, analyze it as if you were a business owner. Take the profit and loss of your life basically and analyze it and see where you're missing out and what maybe you can improve on, and use those different aspects of your life to each one of their advantages. So if you get one particular thing out of your corporate job, and that's where you feel like you need to improve, then focus a little bit more of your energy on that. And just kind of, you have to shift things around as you go, but you need to really think of your life as owning it, as your business, as your own little like engine that could, like it is yours. So own it.
I love that. Yes, it's like that's like integrating the entrepreneurial spirit into everything you do. Like, yes, you can be sitting at your desk, but you're running your desk like a business. You're like, I'm going to communicate effectively and professionally to my clients, although they're not your clients like for your business. But this is part of my brand. If I respond to this high level exec in a nasty, snooty manner, that reflects on my brand. Think about the same way. If you have a business and you have a client that has an issue, you didn't ship a product or the product got lost in, shipping and they're reaching out and they're angry and they're upset, how are you going to respond to them? Think of the same way you would, in your career, like you said, and then in your personal life, you are the entrepreneur of your personal life. Like you're allowed to shift, you can readjust if there's things you struggle or need help in, and it's nothing wrong with outsourcing for that. So I am a big advocate, especially being working moms, and we have children and spouses and other things we're taking care of. If you need to outsource for help, never feel guilty for doing so. If you need to hire, if you can afford to, and you need to hire someone to come in and clean your house once a month or something like that. If you need to, I love HelloFresh. If you need to you're like grocery shopping just gives you anxiety, or you want to use Instacart, and have someone it's okay to do that. Don't feel guilty about that, especially if it gives you back time to spend with your family, to focus on, your passions and your pursuits. Always never be afraid to ask for help. I tell people that all the time. It's okay to get help. Don't feel guilty. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not of weakness. So If you can and you need to outsource for some help within your life to help manage it all, do it.
Yes, absolutely. Like everybody out there who has a full plate needs to hear that and like remember that and live that, because it brings so much ease to your life when you're able to tap into your true gifts, because you're giving yourself the time to do it instead of like wasting your energy on things that are just draining your vibe and draining you know. Like if you don't like folding the laundry, like bring it to the cleaner, bring it to the laundromat. There is a service for that. If you don't like cleaning your house, or you just, it may not even be that you don't like doing these things, it's just that you could make a better use of your time and your energy, then start weeding out those things and setting some goals around the stuff that you hope to be able to outsource at some point. If you're not able to do it right now, there's always a way, there's always a path to move in that direction of being able to free up your time, because that's our greatest value for most people. Like, you don't get it back. There's no way. So nobody's figured that one out yet.
So for anyone that doesn't know, our podcast name, Patent Pending, really came from the idea of everyone is constantly growing and constantly moving to the next step in their lives. So one of the things we want to do moving forward is we want to ask all of our guests what's next for them. And one of the other things that we really like to say is that when you say something out loud, it puts it out into the world. So this is our Say It Out Loud segment. So what we want to do is just ask you, what's next for you? What's your next goal? What's your next step? Because we're here for it, and we're so excited to watch you on your journey also.
Yes, I love that. So I'm going to say this out loud. What's next for me is to continue to help other women climb up that ladder of whatever that looks like for them. And as I'm making my way up, I am turning around and I am reaching back to bring them with me. It is not lonely at the top if you're doing it right. It is only lonely at the top if you're not reaching back and bringing others with you. So that is what I am doing next. I am bringing others to the top with me.
That's awesome. If you are listening to this and you want to say something out loud, post it on social media, tag us in it, we'll repost it. We're excited to see what your guys' journeys are as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening in today, guys. Do you want to tell our listeners, Danielle, a little bit about the best places to find you, and how you prefer to be connected with if anyone's looking to get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely, Melissa. So I can be found, I'm on Facebook as Danielle Avant, in parentheses, Jordan, my maiden name. I can be found on Instagram at Danielle.Avant, LinkedIn, Danielle Avant. I don't think it's a whole lot of us, so you should find me. And then my website is www.danielleavant.co. There, and my email address is hello@danielleavant.co. Any way you want to reach me, I am reachable, happy to engage, answer any questions or serve in any way I can.
Thank you so much. This has been so amazing. We will link to all of that in the show notes. I'm so excited to hear about everything that you guys are doing and how we all might be able to help you in some capacity. Definitely reach out, connect with us. You know where to find us. And we'll see you next week. Bye for now.